It was the year 1871. The small town of Ashbourne, hidden deep in the countryside of England, lived in peace. People there knew each other by name. Horses filled the streets, lamps glowed with soft yellow light, and life followed a quiet rhythm. But one winter night, something happened in the Finch family home that would change everything. The Finch family lived in an old wooden house at the edge of town. Samuel Finch, the father, was a respected schoolteacher. His wife Mary was kind and gentle, known for helping neighbors in need. They had one child, a boy named Thomas Finch. He was 10 years old, shy and quiet, but there was something about Thomas that no one could explain. From the moment he was born, the boy was different. Doctors said he had a strange heartbeat, sometimes too slow, sometimes too fast. He could stay awake for days without sleep. Sometimes his body would grow cold, as if all life had left him. But then he would suddenly breathe again, his eyes wide open, as if waking from a dream. At first, the Finches thought it was an illness, but as Thomas grew older, the things around him began to change too. Candles would flicker when he entered a room. Clocks would stop. Once, a mirror cracked when he stared into it for too long. His mother grew afraid but tried to hide it. "He's just gifted," she whispered to herself. But the neighbors started talking. Some said the boy was cursed. Others said he had been touched by something unholy. No one dared come near the Finch house after sunset. One evening during a storm, Samuel found Thomas sitting in the dark. The boy was staring at the wall, whispering something softly. When Samuel asked what he was doing, Thomas turned slowly and said, "They're calling me." "Who?" Samuel asked, his heart pounding. "The ones who were here before," the boy replied, his voice calm and cold. After that night, strange things began happening more often. The family's cat disappeared. Mary began hearing footsteps in the attic when no one was there. Furniture moved during the night. The house, once filled with warmth, felt colder with every passing day. Word spread quickly through the town. The local pastor visited, bringing holy water and prayers. He placed his hand on the boy's head and whispered blessings. But Thomas didn't blink. He only said, "They don't like your words." Then the candles blew out on their own. The pastor left and never returned. Samuel Finch was a man of science, not superstition. He wrote letters to doctors in London begging them to study his son. One doctor, Dr. Arthur Wells, finally agreed to come. When he arrived, he carried books, tools, and a strange curiosity. He believed there was no mystery science couldn't explain. The doctor examined Thomas for hours. He checked his pulse, his eyes, his skin temperature. Everything seemed impossible. Sometimes the boy's heart stopped beating for minutes, yet he didn't die. His body temperature dropped so low it should have killed him, but he still spoke, still smiled faintly. Dr. Wells stayed overnight, determined to record every detail. Around midnight, he heard a sound, soft whispers coming from Thomas's room. When he opened the door, he saw the boy sitting up, his eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. "They want to show you," Thomas said. The doctor froze. "Who wants to show me what?" he whispered. Before Thomas could answer, every candle in the room went out. The doctor heard footsteps circling him, slow, heavy, deliberate. But when he lit a match, there was nothing there. Only the boy, still sitting, smiling faintly in the dark. The next morning, Dr. Wells packed his things and left. He refused to speak about what he saw. His final note in his journal read, "The boy defies every law of nature. His condition is not of this world." As months passed, the Finch family grew more isolated. No one visited them. Children were told never to go near their house. And Thomas, he grew quieter, colder. Sometimes he stood outside in the snow without shivering. Sometimes he spoke to the empty air, as if listening to someone only he could hear. One night, Mary woke to find her son standing by the window, his hand pressed against the glass. Outside in the field, small lights flickered, moving slowly, like people carrying lanterns. But when she looked closer, she saw there were no people, just shapes, dark, shifting figures in the fog. Mary screamed for her husband, but by the time Samuel reached the window, the lights were gone. Thomas turned to them and whispered, "They'll come again tomorrow." No one slept that night. The next morning, Samuel packed a bag and told Mary they were leaving. But Thomas refused. "They said I can't go," he said softly. "They said this is where I belong." Samuel tried to carry his son, but the moment he touched him, a burning pain shot through his arms. He dropped Thomas instantly, his hands red and blistered as if touched by fire. That was the last moment Samuel truly looked at his son with love. From that day, fear replaced everything else. No doctor could explain it. No priest could bless it away. And as winter grew colder, people in town began to disappear. A farmer, a young girl, even the pastor. All gone without a trace. Every time someone vanished, lights were seen again near the Finch house, and Thomas just smiled. Weeks passed after the last strange lights were seen outside the Finch home. The town had fallen into fear and silence. People locked their doors early, children were kept inside, and no one dared to speak about the Finch boy in public. It was as if the whole town was waiting for something they didn't want to see. Inside the Finch house, the world had changed. Samuel had stopped going to work. Mary barely ate. Every sound, every shadow made them jump. But Thomas seemed calm. Too calm. He would sit by the window all day, watching the fields, as if waiting for something only he could see. One evening, Samuel found his wife crying near the kitchen. "He's not our son anymore," she whispered. "When I look into his eyes, it's like something else is looking back." Samuel tried to stay strong, but deep down, he felt the same. Sometimes, when he passed by Thomas's room at night, he could hear voices, whispering, laughing softly, as if invisible guests were there. When he opened the door, there was only Thomas, sitting quietly, smiling in the dark. Word of the strange happenings reached London again. Dr. Wells, the man who had once studied Thomas, received another letter from Samuel, this time filled with desperation. It said, "We are losing him. Please, help us before it's too late." Dr. Wells hesitated. He still had nightmares about the boy, but his curiosity and guilt pulled him back. He returned to Ashbourne with 2 assistants and several strange instruments. He wanted to prove once and for all that science could explain everything. When the doctor arrived, the Finch house looked abandoned. The windows were covered with heavy curtains. The yard was overgrown. And yet, the moment they stepped inside, they felt something, a heavy air, a strange stillness. Thomas greeted them with a polite smile. He looked pale, older somehow, as if years had passed instead of months. "Welcome back, Doctor," he said softly. "They've been waiting for you." The doctor frowned. "Who's been waiting for me, Thomas?" The boy tilted his head and whispered, "The ones who taught me." That night, the doctor began his examination. He checked Thomas's pulse, his temperature, and his reflexes, all of it impossible, just like before. No heartbeat for almost a minute, yet the boy still breathing. His body cold as ice, yet alive. Then, the doctor asked Thomas to describe what he meant by "the ones who taught me." Thomas smiled faintly. "They're not like us," he said. "They come when the air turns still. They teach me things about life and death." The doctor felt a chill. "Are they spirits?" he asked. Thomas shook his head slowly. "Not spirits. They were here before people had names. They're old. They don't die." Before the doctor could ask another question, the lamps flickered. The air grew cold. The doctor's instruments began to shake on their own. One of his assistants screamed. A dark shadow moved across the wall, long and thin like smoke, but with eyes. The lights went out. When the candles were lit again, Thomas was still sitting in the same place, calm and quiet. but one of the doctor's assistants was gone. They searched the entire house, every room, every corner, but he had vanished completely. Only his bag remained, lying near the stairs. That night, Dr. Wells realized the truth he didn't want to believe. Whatever surrounded the Finch boy wasn't something science could measure or understand. He tried to leave the next morning, but Thomas stopped him at the door. "You can't go yet," he said. "They want to show you more." The doctor stared at the boy, fear tightening his chest. "Thomas, listen to me. You're sick. You need help." Thomas smiled again. "I'm not sick, doctor. I'm changing." Later that day, the doctor wrote in his notes, "His eyes, they no longer reflect light like a human's. They seem to absorb it. I fear whatever he is becoming, it is not human." Meanwhile, Mary grew weaker each day. She would wake up screaming, saying she saw hands reaching out from the walls. Samuel tried to comfort her, but one night she vanished too. Her bed was empty, the sheets cold. The only thing left was a single handprint burned into the wall beside her pillow. Samuel broke down. He begged Thomas to tell him what happened. Thomas simply said, "She's with them now." Samuel tried to run, but he never made it far. By morning, he was found sitting in a chair near the fireplace, his eyes open, his face pale as stone, his body lifeless. Now, only Thomas and Dr. Wells remained in the house. The doctor, terrified but determined, decided to stay one more night, to uncover the truth once and for all. He set up his instruments and lit every candle he could find. Thomas sat quietly in front of him, staring into the flame. "Thomas," the doctor said softly, "what are they?" The boy turned slowly, his voice cold and distant. "They are the ones who come when the world forgets them. They live in silence. And they choose me because I can hear them." The doctor tried to ask more, but his voice broke. The room grew darker, colder, until the flames bent sideways as if pulled by an unseen wind. And then, for the first time, Thomas's voice changed, deeper, echoing as if many voices spoke through him. "You came to understand," he said. "Now you will see." The candles went out again, and this time the doctor screamed. When the candles went out, the house became completely silent. The only sound was the doctor's shaking breath. Somewhere in the dark, Thomas's voice echoed, soft, distant, almost not human anymore. "Don't be afraid, doctor. They just want to show you what I see." The doctor tried to move, but he couldn't. His body felt heavy, frozen. He could hear faint whispers, hundreds of them, circling around him, growing louder and louder. The room filled with a strange cold wind, even though the windows were closed. Then, the darkness started to move. From every corner of the room, shadows slid across the walls. They weren't like normal shadows. These had shape, movement, eyes that glowed faintly like dying embers. The doctor's heart pounded. He wanted to scream, but his voice was gone. And then he saw Thomas. The boy was standing now, his face calm, his eyes glowing faint silver. His skin looked pale as snow, and his shadow stretched far too long across the floor, twisting and moving even when he didn't. "Thomas," the doctor whispered, forcing his voice to work. "What are you?" Thomas smiled. "I'm what comes next." The doctor fell to his knees, his fear turning into disbelief. "This can't be real. You're just a child." Thomas interrupted him. "I was a child, but they changed me. They showed me what the world really is." The doctor felt the air grow thicker, harder to breathe. The walls of the old house seemed to pulse, as if alive. Then he saw them, faces forming in the dark wood, watching him, whispering. He realized those weren't shadows. They were the missing people. The pastor, the farmer, the mother. Their faces were part of the walls now, frozen, silent, but their eyes still moving. The doctor crawled backward, trying to escape, but the door slammed shut on its own. The whispering voices grew louder, chanting words in a language he couldn't understand. Thomas walked toward him slowly. "They said I can choose," he said softly. "They said I can bring one more with me." The doctor's eyes widened. "Please, please don't." Thomas leaned closer. "They like you, doctor. You wanted to see the truth." The doctor screamed, but no sound came out. The next morning, the townspeople saw smoke rising from the Finch property. When they arrived, the house was gone. Only ashes and blackened wood remained. There were no signs of the Finch family or the doctor. Nothing survived. For years, no one dared to build anything on that land. People said they could still hear whispering at night when the wind passed over the field. Some travelers said they saw a boy standing in the fog, pale, silent, watching. Decades later, in 1923, a group of historians visited the site. They found a piece of metal buried deep in the ground, part of a strange machine. It was identified as one of Dr. Wells's instruments. On the side of it, scratched in rough handwriting, were 4 words: "He is not human." The historians tried to dig further, but the ground beneath the Finch house was hard, as if it had turned to stone. One worker swore he heard a heartbeat coming from under the soil. After that, no one touched the land again. Even now, over a century later, people in Ashbourne still tell stories. They say when fog covers the fields and the night turns silent, you can hear faint knocking sounds like someone trying to get out from beneath the earth. Some say it's Thomas Finch. Others believe it's the doctor, still searching for answers. But the truth, no one really knows. Because science could never explain the boy who stopped being human.